Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melissa Lieberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how. On today's episode, I'm so excited to welcome Elizabeth Friedman. She has been a client and is a fellow independent consultant who's launched her business about 9 months ago. And I can't wait to hear Elizabeth and all of her perspective on these last 9 months and how she's been so successful right out of the gates and her experiences that will hopefully help all the independent consultants listening to help create some success as quickly as Elizabeth has had. So we'll see if she agrees with me on the way I've just described her journey in the last 9 months. But Elizabeth, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself and give a little background on what you're doing as an independent consultant, and we'll get started from there.
Be happy to. And here's where I would differ with you on that intro, Melissa, which is I'm not just a former client, but a delighted, thrilled client, because as all of you know who listen to Melissa, who love Melissa, you just need people with you on this journey. And right out of the gate, because I just believe so strongly in coaching and know it can get you so much farther faster, that Melissa, all day long, we're going to talk about what a huge resource you are to me, and I know so many others.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. And I've been so honored to be on this journey with you. Tell us a little bit, Elizabeth, about what happened, why you decided to become an independent consultant. What were you doing before this and what you're doing now?
Yeah. So my background is really in the executive leadership and performance space. And so worked for many years in the consulting industry, working with senior leaders, with teams on their leadership, on their performance. So picture everything from succession to assessment to advising, you name it, was part of that. And so always had a real passion for this work, and also knew I loved the idea of doing this in a more entrepreneurial way, being able to bring in other elements like the mindset element. And I know, Melissa, you know this work. Again, to those listening, it's one of the reasons why I was so drawn to you, because I believe so deeply in not just being able to do the work we want to do with our clients, but really be able to bring in these other elements. And so I know you excel in this area, and it's what I wanted to do. And so it's what led me to start my own practice this year called E-Suite, E as an executive E-Suite leader, which really helps. I always like to say the best leaders in the world, the most high performing, get to the C-suite and then excel and thrive there. And so that's really the work that I do and am excited to continue to do.
Amazing. So walk us through the first quarter of the year. You just started your business. You're figuring all of the things out. Give us a little bit of sense of what, now that you've got a couple of quarters of hindsight to leverage. Tell us a little bit about what that first quarter was look like in your business and how you decided where to focus, what types of offerings to offer. I mean, give us a little bit of insight there.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just give you all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Melissa's being very lovely, but Melissa, you could probably tell this story better than I could. The good is I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work with senior executives, and so I didn't have a lot of challenge around who am I trying to serve. The how is where things started to go off the rails, and I needed to like get my focus back about 20 times, because I wanted to do many things at once. And I really struggled in the beginning to keep my business simple, as uncomplicated as possible. And what that meant was, hey, Elizabeth, you're going to do like one or two things for your clients, and that's all. So those first 3 months of just really trying to land on how do I want to serve my market? Because again, if I go back into my history, I could do this, I could do that. And so that got me lost. And so one of the things I found to be so helpful with you was just staying focused on those 1 or 2 areas that I felt I had the most success in, that I could deliver on my own. Long way of saying what that translated to for me was did a lot of work one-on-one coaching with my clients, and deciding early on I was gonna work with teams, which are 2 things that I love to do. And I know it probably sounds obvious to everybody else, but to me, I'll tell you, it was hard for me to just land the plane there and then stick with it, Melissa. And so that was important for that first quarter.
Yeah, and so how did you had some temptations, I think, to go do a lot of things at once. Tell us more about how you managed through those temptations and kept your focus, most of the time on the lanes that you chose.
Like, other than crying to you in a meeting, okay, what else did I do? Yeah, because I mean, I really do think a lot of it was being reminded of where my clients were already coming to me, um, where I saw a path to revenue, where I felt I was most uniquely differentiated to support clients, and really where I felt it was doable for me to deliver. And so I think just being able to have 2 strong offers that I could articulate well, that I felt I had a clear process, around, both to support clients. I think just being able to say that out loud, be able to define that in a simple way, be able to put that into things like website, marketing tools, and so on, and then demonstrate to myself that I could get business there repeatedly, that was really the magic formula.
Yeah. And so where did those first set of clients come from? How did you
Yeah.
start filling your pipeline and landing those clients?
Yeah. So, Melissa, I love the pipeline question, and I know you've got an incredible course, that's coming out about how to support folks like me and others in pipeline management. Um, and one of the things that you said to me was low hanging fruit, low hanging fruit, low hanging fruit. And just to keep remembering, I've worked with a lot of people over the years. I really do know people in my network, friends, former colleagues, connections. And so just being able to let people know what I was up to, let people know how I'm helping clients. Again, nothing that we haven't heard or probably learned that, right? Our network really becomes such a source of opportunity. But um, that was yet another thing I overcomplicated. I thought I needed funnels and lots of social media activity, and it really just came down to, in my case, a lot of email outreach, getting on the phone and talking to people, letting them know how I could help them, and having 2 well-defined offers in front of them. Obviously, being able to talk to the right people about the right things, given my market, was important too.
Yeah. I think one of your talents, Elizabeth, is being able to have those networking conversations and turn it into an opportunity and making that transition. A lot of consultants get stuck in what I like to call the friend zone, where we're having a lot of these networking calls and then they don't go anywhere. When you think about when you think about your ability to take a networking call and move it into an opportunity, tell us more about how you think you do that and how you think about it and what approaches you use.
Some of the people in my network um, are going to be huge resources for me, but often it was not in the way that I initially thought. So, for example, um, sometimes someone's a great source for a referral. Sometimes someone is themselves a great candidate for the work I do. Sometimes they can point me in a different direction. Sometimes it is really a um, getting their guidance on something. So I say that because I did have to open the aperture and kind of broaden
Mm,
my definition of what's a good outcome from this conversation and having that clarity prior to going into it. So that was certainly one element. Not everybody was going to lead to, back to your analogy, right? Like first date and,
mhm.
or, um, just I think being thoughtful about different ways that I can do that. But more to your point, how did I not get in the friend zone? I just had to be really direct. And
Mm,
I struggled with that at times. And I know speaking to you about that, Melissa, you helped me recognize where I was being a little too indirect. I still have to work on that, by the way. I can be a little bit circumspect. And as a side note, this came up for me on my, let's say, website version 1.0, where I started to get feedback from a couple of trusted clients that said, wait, tell me what you're doing now. And I thought, are you kidding me? Isn't it obvious what I'm doing? But it was such a good thing for me to hear because over and over I learned that lesson. Um, if I'm asking for business, it seems obvious to me. It may not be for them. And so I've just worked on continuing to get clearer and more refined on being direct, being straightforward, and not being afraid to ask. And I think that's probably what it's come down to.
Yeah. I might also add not being afraid to ask, but also not expecting something from someone. Or like you said, it might be that you're anticipating one thing and it becomes something else. So not going in there with an expectation that's so specific that you end up feeling disappointed or frustrated or, feeling like that person let you down when in fact it may look differently than what you anticipated it, and not letting that slow down the lead gen process as a result.
Absolutely. I think playing the long game is important, having lots of lines in the water, as I say. And, as I'm sure, again, many of your listeners do, and we recognize, particularly in the type of work that we're all doing, and just maintaining that discipline around the outreach, which is a muscle that I've developed over the years. And of course, this puts you, if you thought you were strong, well, you're going to be challenged. And so whatever I was doing, I would just tell myself, you're doing the right things. You just have to do 10 times more. You just have to do 20 times more. And so significantly increasing the number of conversations I was having a day, the number of just, again, outreach, touch points is a huge part of how I've been able to, I think, consistently close business. That really has been my strategy.
Yeah. And how did you fit that in? Because when you started your practice, you had a client really early out of the gate, which was your former employer,
Yes.
and which is so common for many of us. And so you're trying to deliver for that client that you have right away, and then also having all these conversations and knowing that you want to increase the volumes of those conversations to fill the pipeline. Tell us more about how you manage through those balancing all of the time and demands on your time.
I always think about what my former CEO, Suzanne Bates, would tell me. You get up in the morning, you do the things that make you money, and you have to pay yourself first. And I think I just somehow um, never forgot that. And so it's probably really, end of the day, Melissa, just uh, you have to do the things that make you money if you're running a business and take that really seriously. And I think we all know how incredibly easy it is. And listen, of course, I've had days where the delivery takes over your life, but I'm like, no matter what, you have to at least reach out to 5 people. And so, hey, that's always been the practice for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is great, right? It's like no matter what, five, this is your baseline, this is your minimum standard. And no matter what other things and demands are happening, personally, professionally, getting that to that number every time and knowing what that number is really so valuable.
Yeah. And in addition to the delivery, I think the other big thing I have to manage time around, I'm going to call it the marketing, the content creation, the social media, all that. Wow, that can suck up your time. And it's great for visibility. And there may be, folks listening that really can absolutely directly track business through that. So I'm not disparaging that in any way, but I got to tell you, for me, I'm like, that stuff just doesn't make you money. It indirectly helps, but I think it's, you got to get on the phone. You have to talk to people. You have to understand what's going on and just keep that dialogue going. And hey, I think as long as I can keep my focus there, not spend hours creating content or whatever, things go better for me.
Yeah. Those can be distraction, like productive procrastination. It feels productive,
Oh
but
my
really
God.
and kind of fun sometimes. But
Totally. Like, Melissa, I swear I had a couple of days early on. I think I spent like 2 hours on a LinkedIn post or something stupid
Yeah.
like that, and I said, you're gonna go broke if you do that." So, I had to kinda get over that quickly, and that is hard because the other barrier for me, a little bit of this perfectionist
Mm,
tendency, and so I would see stuff that I would put out or, thank you, ChatGPT, would get some help on, and it wasn't great, I didn't love it, and I had to remind myself that, sometimes it's okay, you just produce B minus work, you get it out the door, and let's
yeah.
move on, so
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So let's tell everyone your first quarter in
yeah.
business was a
Mhm.
100K quarter,
Yes.
which is incredibly what an accomplishment,
Thank
and
you.
something that is for a lot of us something we would love to achieve. So whether it is the first quarter or any quarter making 100K, so to give us the behind the scenes, how do you think that came to be? Looking back, how do you repeat that year quarter over quarter? Tell us more about what that looks like and how a consultant who's solo with a little bit of support on the back end is able
Mhm.
to create that type of result.
Mhm. Mhm. You know, I used to lead a consulting team and, uh, probably like a lot of folks that have led teams, among the other things we had to do is we had to sell. And I remember when I would work with the team looking at, again, what are you doing each day? How are you pricing your products? What is the mix and blend? And so I'm certainly not reinventing the wheel here, but I really had to just take my own medicine and apply a lot of that thinking to me. So back to that idea of you just nothing matters more. You're running a business. Every day you wake up and you do the things that make you money. And so again, having that front and center was a piece. Think looking at how you're pricing things and the mix of your offers becomes important. I have since met many, many wonderful coaches and consultants, and I look at what they're pricing and I'm like, that's too low.
Hmm.
That's just too low. And I'm not saying be overpriced. And I think certainly maybe there are some advantages when you work in a more executive level space where there's a different price point or um, understanding around how offerings are scoped and so on. But I think, price it to win is important. I think it's how do you get to 100K in a quarter or more for that matter when you're just pricing stuff that's a lower ticket? Doesn't mean you can't, of course. It's just a different whole strategy around, your marketing and so on. So that really is key. Um, And having just tons of confidence in what you offer, really being comfortable with the way you've priced and structured it. I know a lot of people, and again, even on my old team, where they would just say, I can't say that number out loud. And so I think those are not things you can have hanging around in your life, at least too often, if you're really trying to get to a certain revenue goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I want to highlight here, which you haven't said explicitly, but I think is so important, is that you started off with the clear, I think the clarity that 100K is possible. And like you just said, beyond 100K is possible. So let's just start at 100K for this first quarter because I know more is possible in a quarter. So we'll start with 100K. And when you think like that, then it just opens up all the doors to say, okay, how am I going to hit the 100K? Like you said, breaking it down and understanding what is the service mix and what does the pricing look like to build up to 100K. But the difference, I think, in seeing you and your business compared to others is the starting point, which is I know 100K is possible. Let's start from there. And there was very little doubt. I mean, of course, along the way, there was doubt up, we're all up and down, we're humans, but for the most part, you had a very clear goal and understanding that 100K was not a stretch, that it was very possible and doable for you. So starting from that place, I think is the core critical first step. Yeah.
Always, the first sale you make is to yourself.
Mm,
The first sale you make is to yourself. And so I did have to believe in that. And what that also meant was I could not afford to question certain things about my business.
mm.
And again, Melissa, you saw all the drama in my brain, and I loved to make it complicated and question, but thank you, through the grace of God, I was able to, I mean, truly believe that, uh, don't doubt this for a minute. And listen, whether or not I could achieve it or not, I was like, I don't care. I'm really going to believe this. And so again, it just saved me time and effort and energy versus freaking out about my pricing or my offers. I just, kind of went for it.
Yeah. And it always helped you to redirect back, right? It's like, okay, I know this 100K is possible. I know I'm a little bit off the rails right now, or I've overcomplicated these things. Let's just go back to the original plan goal, what's centered around this, which is making 100K in this first quarter, doing what you love, helping the clients in the way that you love helping them, and that helps so much, I think, from a constraint perspective as well. Always having that thing to ground, that goal to ground, you both what how you're spending your time and the way you're thinking.
The other thing, and this is again, I think, such a wonderful role that you played for me, Melissa, and for clients, you've got to be around people that just all day long breathe belief into you that, no, that's doable. That's not crazy. Of course you can do it. Lots of people do it. And I think I think the more I'm in this work and maybe in this life, that is the key. It is deeply believing in the ideas that you believe will create success for you, for your business, for your clients. And, one of the things I'll add that has been even more as I went along this first year, seeing how if I got my head in the right place
Mm,
and the belief in the right place and really spent the time, in my case, in the morning to just like get that all in good order, can I tell you, my day went so much better. The selling went better. If it, call didn't go well, moving on, next. I didn't dwell on it. So that importance of mindset, headspace, alignment, and throughout the day, staying connected to that, honestly, that's been the biggest learning for me, how important that is.
yeah, I had a podcast episode a couple of weeks ago about this and the use of business owner thinking time. It's one
Totally.
of the first things to go a lot of times when we're busy. We have a long list. We can't think of how to fit everything in. That is usually the thing that gets cut first. And so for you to talk about the criticality of this and why it ends up making the day more effective and you more productive is so key, I think, as an ingredient to your success here, as you're pointing out. Yeah.
And oh, by the way, Melissa, I would forget to do it. Tell myself I didn't need to do it, by
Right.
the way. And then a few days would go by and I would feel anxious, terrible about something, frustrated. Then I'd say, "Oh yeah, that's because you haven't done that thing that
That's
Melissa
right.
told you to do." It doesn't, for better or worse, take me long to remember how important it is. But I think particularly when we're talking about raising our prices, asking for more, holding on to not just a belief, but also then being able to stand behind that belief and delivery of value, that takes some mindset work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the other mindsets that you have that's so effective is an abundant mindset. You're in a space that has a lot, there are a lot of people out there that do the type of work that you do, not in the way that you do it or with your unique perspective. But tell us a little bit about how you maintain that abundant mindset where you know that there's enough work out there for you and enough clients for you to be successful and that they will want to work with you.
I think one of the things, if you're in any sort of coaching business, you get very accustomed to, hey, I'm not right for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, I've been in many situations where people that, hey, I thought we were like going to be, this was my new best friend. And they've said, like, yeah, Elizabeth, I'm going in another direction and it's not you. Or you start working. How about this? This is always fun. And they decide they don't want to keep working with you, or they fire you, or I mean, you name it. Right. I mean, and so
Yeah.
you go through these experiences and then you really do, I think, just over and over learn that lesson. No, it's okay. Number one, I'm not right for everybody. So I think that's an element of it. But I have to say, I've never been too caught up in, um, I don't know, there's a lot of people doing this work. I'm too late. Forget it. You just can't worry about it. There's always plenty of fish in the sea. And so I think I just keep remembering, hey, I'm going to be right for some people and not. And so competition, I just don't sweat it. I know a ton of people who do this work. Great. To me, it's like the ultimate proof of concept that
Mm.
there's need, there's demand. So that's not a piece I get too worked up about.
Yeah, which I think you sharing that mindset is also so critical because so many consultants do. And knowing that your two core thoughts here are there are plenty of fish in the sea, and that there are plenty of clients out there that are looking for what you bring to the table, and not to worry about what everyone else is doing. It's irrelevant. Yeah.
And that's been so helpful for me personally because again, it's sort of the more you're you, the better your whole life gets. But, the better you do your work, your clients experience your work. And so really being able to embrace my way.
Mm,
And just for people listening, you're hearing the way I am with Melissa. This is exactly how I am with my clients.
mm,
And they are C-suite, senior executive, some rather buttoned up types of people. And I think for a long time, I sort of held back, you know, too bad because, honestly, Melissa, I probably could have won more business if I could have
mm.
just been a bit more me. But
Yeah.
hey, you learn the things when you learn them.
Yeah.
But I think all the more reason why, who cares if there are a million people doing what you do? Once again, there's only one you. And thank God there's you out there to deliver your message in your way. But yeah, you can get into that. And, by the way, Melissa, I think managing some of the reading stuff on social media and reading other people's content and
Mm,
consuming even wonderful content, I do know I have to manage that. I really do for a lot of reasons, but probably that is one of them that it does start to get into my head in a way, not so much God, but more in the I should. I
mhm.
should do that. Oh, they're doing that. I really should do that. God, they're
Right.
so good at that. I should do that.
Yeah.
That is another version of energy and distraction for me. And I'm like, no, the only thing, if you're going to pick a should, Elizabeth, just get up in the morning, do the things that make you money. That's what you should do. So I have to keep coming back to what's important in this business. Think
So
about your
good.
client,
Yeah.
help your clients, focus
Yeah.
there.
I love that mantra. That is the main focus. What are we doing today to make money?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
right.
As a business owner,
Yeah, I don't know if I can say bad words on this podcast, but I
you
used to
can.
always, oh, you can? Yeah, I was like, let's go sell some shit. Let's just
Yeah,
go sell some shit, right? Like,
that's right.
come on, like let's have some fun with this. And think again in our work, like whatever your trick is for making this fun for you, uh, that's just so important, isn't it? Because otherwise you feel like I'm sitting in my home office. I've heard 20 no's today. It's just me and my laptop. I want to cry. So how do we make this fun? Right? We
That's
got to
right.
find ways. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What you were just saying too reminds me of one of my favorite people from corporate. His name is Grant, and he would always say, ask for the order. Just ask for the
Yes.
order, ask for
Yeah.
the order, ask for the order.
Yeah.
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 In some form or fashion, kind of like what you were saying when we first started talking about this, when you're networking, even what is the order, quote unquote. It might not be, do you need do you want to talk about what coaching or what it would look like to work together? It might be, can you connect me to John Doe because I would love to meet that person, whatever it is. Ask for the order.
Ask for the order. And I will say also, what can they say yes to?
Mm,
And this has been hard, a harder one for me to learn, Melissa, because I have some clients, I'm like, they know everybody.
mm,
In 5 minutes, they could introduce me to, like, you name it. I've asked them, but they haven't.
Mhm.
So what am I not seeing here? And, I've come to appreciate that, there are some things they're gonna say yes to just because they can, they may or may not. So what can they say yes to? So back to this idea, okay, this person is gonna say yes to being a guest on my podcast. And while I could also ask him to introduce me to 8,000 people, that hasn't been an area where he said yes to me yet. So I think that I'm just learning, how do I create more success in this conversation? Things they can say yes to has been helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Experimenting, right? Not everyone is the same. So using your best intuition to figure out what that might be and not taking it personally when the answer is no or lukewarm. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so easy to make up stories, isn't it? Like, God, I'm bothering them, or this is the ninth time I've reached out and I haven't heard back. And they're never going to want to do business with me. And I know we all have examples of people where, they've been on our mailing list for 900 years and eventually they buy. And just when you've thought they're never, ever going to want to work with you, or, the examples of, it's the 20th email they respond to. So I think the other lesson, and this is a friend of mine, he's like, unless basically they tell me to, like never darken my doorstep again, I'm just going to keep reaching out to them. Why
Yeah.
not? And so
Yeah.
obviously there's a way to do it. There are different approaches that allow us to, I think, still be gracious in that process, but nonetheless, to really be careful of the stories where you just assume I'm bothering them, all
Mm,
that just nonsense we tell ourselves.
yeah. Oh, we get really good at it too.
Oh my God. Yes, we do.
Tell us a little bit. One of the ways that you create a lot of awareness and a reputation for yourself and ultimately leads as speaking. So give us some behind the scenes about speaking and how you've been leveraging that as one of the strategies in your business.
Speaking's interesting. Um, I have learned a few things. One is I have to really be thoughtful about the audience. And I've made some mistakes with that this year, Melissa. I spoke in front of an audience where it wasn't a good fit. And what was weird about that situation, and maybe some of you have had this experience, I had delivered a very similar message the night before to a different group, and it was wonderful. Next day, didn't land with this crew. So, not to come in through the speaking conversation through that door, but I think for me, getting clearer and clearer on who are the right people for me to be speaking with, what am I speaking about? So I think I've had to learn there are certain topics that lend themselves better to certain audiences, certain formats. So maybe that's a detail, but for me, that's become important. I think around speaking itself, it's a great lead gen tool. It can be, again, when those conditions are met. Um, I think the other learning, and I'm not sure, Melissa, if this is where you want to go with the conversation, but I think learning what is the appropriate way to help people in an audience understand what you do without, I think, again, am I overselling? Am I um, somehow not being clear with this audience about who I am and how I can help them? So I think those are other elements I've had to work through. But taking a step back, I love speaking for a lot of reasons beyond sort of the marketing. It just is an opportunity for me to engage with an audience, which is always energizing. The learning of where they're responding, what they're connecting with that I have found you get through that experience. I mean, those have been other ways that I found speaking to be just incredibly helpful.
Yeah. I think, as you're talking about describe helping people to understand what you do in a subtle way so that it's not because you're not going into these speaking engagements pitching anything. That's not why anyone brought you in to speak. Tell us a little bit more about how do you weave that in for the audience to understand what you do without really that being the specific topic.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, I have examples, client stories that
Mm,
I think clearly help people see what what types of situations and scenarios I'm working on and helping people with that are relevant to what they're experiencing is one. I think it's important though when you step on that stage or in front of that mic that everybody just knows you get them in their world. So yes, it's examples, it's the language, but it's almost right out of the gate helping them feel that you do deeply understand what they're experiencing and what they're working on. And so again, I think this is an area where consultants have such an advantage because we do so deeply understand the challenges our clients are going through. But I think how we bring that into the message, and obviously there are other elements, how do we have great storytelling? How do we engage them? Sure, all of that. But I think fundamentally you exude, no, I understand this work. This is what I do. That becomes very clear to them. And so you don't have to your point, hit them over the head with it and, quote unquote, sell from the stage in some obvious way. I think it's clear.
And tell us how you find those. How are you refining that process of figuring out where to speak and when to speak, how often to speak, especially with some of the lessons learned that you've had this year? How do you approach that?
My clients have typically been my number one source for speaking engagements. And I just ask them,
Mm,
I'll say, tell me where you're going, what's been good, where are you having meetings? Uh, would you connect me to the organization? And so that typically is my number one strategy. And again, back to what are we asking people for when we're having those conversations? That tends to be one of the things sometimes I'll ask, hey, I'm speaking more. I'm speaking on this topic. Um, I know you go to a lot of meetings like this. Curious if there's a place where you think this kind of message could be helpful. And so I will certainly get introductions that way. I personally don't do a lot of cold speaking outreach. Listen, there are some people who probably have a lot of success connecting with, professional associations within their industry or area of expertise. Um, More often than not, my number one speaking engagement is within my client companies. And so it
mm,
tends to be part of the work I do. And I do think for some of those folks listening, you may be a best kept secret inside your client companies. You may have that client or individual that's engaging you or even that team, but you may not be a particularly known entity across the organization. And so, how do you build your brand and visibility within that organization? So, is there a virtual learning series? Is there a webinar series? Do they have leadership meetings that you might be able to bolt onto? Or, again, whatever is appropriate because you understand them in their organization. Chances are, certainly, those learnings and insights could be more broadly applied. That has always been, I think, a successful approach for me. It's kind of the bloom where you're planted, you're inside the company, land and expand, and try to grow within those organizations where that's possible.
yeah, I love that too. Just even thinking about yourself as the best kept secret in the sense
Yeah.
of, I am a secret. I know I can add more value. How do I continue to expand my footprint and make myself the less of a best kept secret versus having a mindset of, well, they don't want, they don't, I can't help beyond this business unit, or they don't feel like I'm giving enough value to expand beyond this business unit. Some of those stories we end up telling ourselves that are not so helpful. But I love this framing that you just shared of the best kept secret.
Yeah. And, Melissa, someone once described it to me this way. They said, imagine you're invited to someone's house, you're at a party, like you got to dance with a bunch of people at the party. And so I know there's the whole dance with the person who brought you. And of course, yes, we do that. But particularly for those of us, if you're inside an organization, in the work I do, if I'm advising one individual that works in a company of 50, 100,000 employees, and I know one or two or three people, that can't happen. And so we can be thoughtful about how we structure the engagement so it gives us appropriately exposure to a wider net of individuals inside the organization. We ask that person who brought us to the party to introduce us to all their friends inside the company. Where would it make sense for someone like me? Who else might benefit? That kind of thing. But I really try to have in my back pocket almost a set of questions about, who else should I be talking to so I can better support you or this work? A lot of us do stakeholder interviews and things like that inside companies, but I think we can be creative there.
So good. Tell us about what your goals are. How do you think about Q4, Elizabeth? You have such a strong sales mindset. So let's hear what your thoughts are about who buys in Q4 and what the possibilities are in Q4, especially for a lot of consultants who think that, the time is limited and start thinking about all the reasons why it's not a good time of year. Let's hear what your thoughts are about it.
Oh gosh. Well, Melissa, I told you before we started this recording, I'm treating like this everybody like my own personal coaching call with Melissa. So like Q4, I think there's a whole bunch of us out there that subscribe to the idea that, within every season, uh, there are certain, I don't know, behaviors that are just naturally connected to, let's say, the natural shifts. And I say that because, right, for those of us that believe it is the fall time, it is harvest time, there's no better time, I think, to reap the rewards of all the wonderful work you've done throughout the year. So from a mindset perspective, staying in that place like, this is the best quarter of the year. Are you kidding me? There is no better quarter than this one, is to me the starting point, and selling myself on that idea, which once again, I have to do multiple times a day. So that said, there are certain types of activities that I think, are more naturally connected to the Q4 rhythm, certainly inside the corporate environment. In my world, I tend to focus a lot on team performance,
Mm,
helping teams either really get focused and clear on the job they still need to do and complete by the end of the year. And
mhm,
so for those teams, it tends to be more laser focused, narrowed in scope. They've got a target, they've got a hit, there's a gap. What's getting in the way? Let's really just focus on closing that gap, for example,
mhm.
versus doing some of the other things that normally I think would be very appropriate and important for teams to do. Q4 is like, what do my clients absolutely have to get done between now and year end? Let me focus my support in that area. So that's maybe one component of that. The other is, I always think Q4 is, um, you know, this is where we set ourselves up for an incredible 12 months ahead. And so, for people listening, whatever your version is of helping your clients do that, I certainly have my own way. One of the things I'm doing right now, I teach a course. I'm saying this like I've done this a million times. I teach a course twice a year, Melissa. Okay, I did it in the spring. I'm doing it again in the fall, but it's all in service of that idea of let's really, really help you just get set up for that outstanding
Mm,
26. And so
yeah.
again, I think, but it comes always back to that fundamental place of there's no better time than Q4. Let's go. And um, there's a lot we can do to help our clients there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're taking your core services and you're positioning them in a way that leads to what's most important for that client in this time of year, and getting your foot in the door through those types of questions, helping that, like you just said, maybe skinnying down some of the work that you might typically do to make it more effective for this time of year and the challenges that your clients are facing, and really using your creativity and the time of year as a benefit to yourself versus something that it feels like you need to overcome.
Well said. Well said, Melissa. Yeah. And I think here's a very old school way that I approach it. I mean, I have like a pad of paper and I write down my clients right now. And I really just think about, what do they have to do between now and year end? Where are they on that journey? If they're, what's the one thing absolutely they've got to get over the finish line? What would be my guidance or support? And, in some cases, I'm like, I can't help them with that. But even just me helping them stay focused, centered on that, maybe that's all I have to do to help. So,
Right?
hey,
That's
there's
right.
lots of ways that we can provide support in that area, but helping them stay clear on that too, that can be very valuable. But I want to, in my mind, understand what that is for each of them first. Now, for some of you, that may not be practical. I don't have a high volume business, so it's a little bit easier for me to take that time to go deep with each of them.
Yeah. But it's you taking that time, there being their second brain, helping them to see that what might even seem obvious is they've lost track of it, and coming to them with those types of recommendations that make you so valuable.
But, I love and maybe they've lost track of it. And even in clients where I'm not working with them anymore. And I should say, like many of us, we keep people in our world, even if they're not currently someone we're engaged with, because now we're friends for life. And this is always my attitude. So I still treat you like,
Mm.
hey, of course we're working together. So I have no problem sending you an email, even if you and I have not officially worked together in 3 or 4 years, and said, you know, I know this is still something you've been focused on. Give me an update. Tell me where you are. I thought of you for this. So I just try to let them know I'm thinking about what matters to you right now.
Mhm.
And especially this time of year, how are you getting that one over the finish line? So you can have that conversation with anyone is really my point.
That's so good. I love that perspective too, that once a client, always a client. Again, until they tell you not
Yeah.
to darken their door again. Once
Correct.
a client, always a
You're
client. Yeah.
never getting rid of me. That's right. Yes, we really are. And so I've always treated it that way. Um, so that's the goal.
Tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about for next year. What are your goals for next year? How are you thinking about them? What are you not going to do? Give us some insight into that planning for 2026.
Um, when I left my company at the end of the year and began working, a lot of what I do didn't look that different in terms of very high level, the types of services or ways that I was working with clients. And so the goal is to continue to evolve the business so that it is that much more me. I really think that's what it comes down to. It's continuing to work with the clients that I love, do this kind of work, but um, I would say refining my approach so it is more in tune with what I believe creates success, what I've seen create success and results for my clients. So, for example, there's absolutely a personal transformation component, the component of what precedes the strategy, the actions, which we all know in our world, right? Like you can take a lot of action all day long, but things have to come before it for that to get the kind of traction and ultimately results you want. And this is true I see inside organizations. And so we all know it's really painful when you have clients where they're not producing results at a company level. They're saying, over and over, they're restructuring, they're changing, they're trying to kind of find that secret sauce. But, you know, um, they haven't addressed maybe some of the foundational elements that are really creating challenge for them. So, long answer to the question, I think, how do we bring more of who we are to have the
Mm,
businesses we really want? It's back to this idea of like go sell some shit, like make it fun.
yeah.
And there were days when I thought, okay, my boss is like this very difficult, demanding person. How do I get rid of her and have somebody fun I can work with? Oh, yeah. And I know, Melissa, you were so helpful, I think, reminding me, I set up this business. I can have it any way I want. But, I think I would get caught in that. But this is what people need to buy, and this is what I know how to
Right.
do. And so evolution is the focus.
That's fun. Be a better boss to yourself next year. There were times you were pretty mean to yourself.
I was, right? And so managing that, getting closer to that wonderful schedule and calendar that I'd like to have, really having a couple of offers that really feel just so aligned
Mm,
with what I love to do, what I enjoy, and where I want to be able to attract wonderful clients. That's just the goal.
you've set such an incredible foundation for yourself. And so now, in my mind, you're really picking and choosing what you want to keep and what you want to enhance, and leveraging it and doing that so off of the thought process of that you are so such a key part of the business. Obviously, you're the one running it, you're the one delivering it, and what you have to bring to the table is unique, and leaning into that more than trying to build out some cookie cutter that someone told you would be the right way to do it.
That's it. I think, as I've used such a great podcast, Melissa, and getting to listen to all the wonderful stories of how people have found their own unique way of delivering value and being them. And so I'm really inspired by that. And so I'm excited to see where it goes. And I'm going to say again, back to the importance of working with other people that can help, that can see you in ways you don't see you.
Yeah.
I mean, even my friends have said, yeah, that sounds so like not you. Where's the fun, Elizabeth? Or that's really, and I'm like, yeah, where did I lose that voice? So I think whatever that version is for you, being able to bring that into your work and just be very out in front with it. It's gonna,
Amazing.
I think, grow the business. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tell us, as we're wrapping up here, Elizabeth, what if you were able to give some advice to all of the consultants listening, what would you share with them? We haven't yet covered.
Well, I'm pausing because I think I go back to that. The first sale you make is to yourself, and nothing matters more than your deep belief in you, the value you bring, and just staying so close to that. I think it's easy to get lost in what do I have to do? And I have, the longest to-do list and all this activity. And yet the most important work becomes the least important. And so I think just reminding people to take that time and believe that if they do, that's what's going to grow the business is the wonderful opportunity that we get to have. And really, how lucky are we that we do this work? So I think just being able to embrace that piece and believe you can do it. Believe you can do it.
Oh, that's so good. Go sell some shit. Sell it to yourself first, and then believe you can sell it to other people, and keep doing that until you hit your goals.
Yes, that's it, Melissa.
The Elizabethism.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's so right. Good. Thank you for being here. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us more about the program you're about to start. Tell us all the things. So if anyone wants to look you up, which I know they will, they'll know where to find you.
Look me up. I would love it. I love meeting like-minded people. And so please, hit me up on LinkedIn. That's usually the platform I use. My website is esuiteleader.com. And so would love to have you check it out. By the way, I always love feedback. So, hey, if you say, yeah, Elizabeth, I don't know what you do, that would be interesting and probably very helpful for me to hear. I do teach a course, particularly for leaders that really want to be seen as ready for the C-suite called eSuite Impact. And that launches October 23rd. So you can see all that on the website.
Amazing. So if you have friends who are still in corporate who want more visibility and more success in their career, send them to Elizabeth and her program.
Thanks,
absolutely.
Melissa.
Yes. Thank you for being here, my friend. It's been so good to have this conversation and for you to be so generous with all the insider information that you shared. Really appreciate it.
Melissa, anytime, and thank you. We all benefit from this podcast and from your work in the world. So thank you.
Amazing. All right, my friend. I'll see you soon. Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melissalieberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.